Hey all, back again, and this one is a request from Shirley Curdy 8068, and he wants to know how to get, let's say, your weapon upgraded to a campaign variant based on the one you're holding without having to compare each and every weapon in the game to the one the player is holding. Because I understand that can get annoying. I've actually done that a few times, not understanding that I could have done it the way that I do in this video. So I'm here to show you how it works, how to make it work, and, well, I think that's the same thing. So, before I ramble on too much more, let's jump right into this. Map setup is pretty easy. You'll see that I have a bunch of weapons laid out here, and as you can probably tell, they are all the campaign variants of the weapons. And there are a couple of exceptions here, and that's the gravity hammer and the energy sword, because they are the only two weapons in the entire game that have more than one campaign variant. The energy sword has the elite blood blade, the duelist energy sword, and then it's got its own special infected energy sword. The gravity hammer has the rushdown gravity hammer and of course the diminisher of hope, which I have here. Using this method will only allow you to use one of the campaign variants, so because every other weapon follows that. So these two are exceptions, and I will probably make another tutorial to show you how to upgrade these in stages to allow you to use the others, so that way you won't have to use this method for these two, but if you just want one upgrade, you can include them in this as well. So anyway, so now that we have all these weapons here, you want to make sure that they're outside of your map, somewhere where they won't be touched by another player or interacted with in any form, so that way they can always be referenced safely in the node graph, because we will be referencing them. And you're probably thinking, oh no, we got to select all these weapons individually, bring them all into the node graph, and then compare them all each to the weapon being held, and it's going to be a ton of nodes. No. The way we're doing it, you will not have to worry about a single node more than one. You can have any number of weapons, and it will still only take up one node in the node graph. So no worries there, and you'll see what I mean when we get into it. But to move on, first step we need to do is grab all of our weapons and have them selected. Okay, now that we have them all selected, we're going to hold X and hold up to create a prefab. Make sure they're lit up green like that, with one blue one, and we're going to name this Legendary Weapons. And now that's what's going to help us do this whole thing. I did include one of every single campaign type, so every weapon is accounted for here, like I said, except for the two other versions of these. And you can start from right there and bring it into the node graph, but I have a button which will be like a pack-a-punch machine from Call of Duty Zombies. So since I have a button, I need to bring that into the node graph as well, but you don't have to if you don't have a button and you're going to use some other event. Well, I'm going to bring them into the node graph with Y. Since I started with a button, I'm going to bring that up here, place it here, and bring in from custom events on Object Interacted. You can use any event in the game. However, I highly recommend that you use an event that allows you to get the player and object counts too from it, so that way you can directly work with the specific player triggering this and their inventory, because it's very important. If you know your way around scripting and can get the player you want without it, you can, but I highly recommend, for just simplicity's sake and being able to make it work right, just make sure that you get the event closest to what you need to get this player. And that includes an object, like I said. If we were to go to events like on Object Insert Area, this object right here would still work with this just fine, considering the node we're going to use automatically filters it as a player. So with that out of the way, let's move on. The next node we're going to be using is from the logic category, and it's for each object. Go ahead and place it right here and connect your event to it. We will actually be coming back to edit this a little bit, but I want to get the main part of the script out of the way first. So we got this. Now we need to plug our prefab into it. However, we can't just plug our prefab into it like that, unfortunately, because although it's technically a list of items, we can't plug it in because an object reference is causing it to be acting like a single object. So let's break it back down by going to Objects and get Objects in Prefab. Connect your prefab to the object input, and then the objects in the prefab will now be accessible for the each object node. So the next thing we need to go to is down here in inventory. It's actually up here in inventory. And we're going to be grabbing our same weapon type. This node is what brings this all together and makes this possible in the first place. The reason why is because of this line right here, our same base weapon type. If it were just our same weapon type, this would not work, because let's say, for example, you have in your inventory a Sentinel Beam and you want to upgrade it to the Arcane Sentinel Beam. Both of those weapons are not the same type. This would not work. However, because of this, it will, because they are the same base weapon type. A Sentinel Beam and an Arcane Sentinel Beam are both still Sentinel Beams, but no other gun in the game is a Sentinel Beam except for those two. Same thing for the AR and the Longshot AR. Same thing for the Battle Rifle and the Breacher Battle Rifle. Same concept. That's why this works. So, plug in Weapon A to the current object, and Weapon B will now be plugging into a new node, and it's just down here, and it's Get Player Weapons. Ooh, it came all the way over there. So, when we have this, we're going to put it right under the event, and this is why you need to be able to reference the player somehow in a way that you know will be interacting with this event. So, you're going to plug the player or object into this right here, which will automatically filter it as a player, and the equipped weapon is what we're going to be coming from. Plug that into Weapon B, because when they push this button or activate this trigger, it's going to be it's going to be upgrading the weapon they are currently holding on screen at that moment. So it's going to check that. And like I said, for example, we have the Sentinel Beam. It's going to check every item in this list, which in this prefab, and find the only ones that match the base weapon type, and there is only one. So that's how we're guaranteed to get the weapon we need to upgrade this weapon. So let's go to Logic, let's go to Branch, and place it right about here. Execute per object, and the condition needs to be our same base weapon type. So now, if true, we're going to give the player the weapon. So let's go back to inventory, and go down here to give player new weapon. Specifically, it needs to be new weapon. If true, plug in here, plug the player all the way back here, the same place where you got the information for the player for this node. And now it would be great if we could just plug in a weapon type to the weapon. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So we need to go to Get Weapon Type, which is one node above it. We place it down here, and go ahead and plug the current object into the weapon. Now, we're going to get the weapon type of, like I said, for example, that Arcane Sentinel Beam. Plug it in here, and now the player will be getting an Arcane Sentinel Beam. The weapon addition method, have it as default, wait until completion is false. Now, it should be complete. With this, there is something I'm going to add in, like I said, right here, which will add a little bit of more complexity to the script. However, it is important depending on what you want. So right now, this will work. That's your script, and let's test it out, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so we have a Sentinel Beam. Let's upgrade it. It's upgraded. So, you see your old weapon's now on the ground. If you pick it back up and then push the button again, you're going to get another Arcane Sentinel Beam, and so on. Yeah, see? So, you don't want that, right? If you do, then congratulations, that is your script. You don't have to do anything else from this point on. However, if you don't want that to happen, and you don't want it to break immersion by just dropping the old weapon and just giving you a brand new one instead of appearing like it upgraded, that's where this part of the tutorial comes in. So, to start this, we need to go down and we're going to make a trinity. So go to Variables Advanced and grab Declare Object Variable. Because what we're going to be doing is having that weapon that would be upgraded and dropped out of the inventory in place of the new upgraded weapon be deleted. So that way it's not there and it just appears seamlessly as if you just upgraded your weapon. The identifier, I'm going to name this dropped. You're going to need Declare Object Variable, by the way. I'm going to set it to global. You can set it to local if you're not going to use it in another script brain. It doesn't generally matter, but that's what I'm doing here. We're going to move this part of the script over because we're going to be adding the set object variable right here. So go back to the same category, a good bit down the list, set object variable. Right there. Plug it in just like this. And make sure your identifier matches. And so does your scope. The value. So the object that needs to be set is our equipped weapon. So when we activate this to upgrade the weapon we're holding, the weapon we're currently holding as we press this button is the one that needs to be gotten rid of since it's being upgraded to the new weapon. So we're going to add our equipped weapon to this variable. So now it's going to be stored here for what we need to do next. And now all we need to do is grab get object variable and add it toward the end here. And then go to objects, delete object, plug it in like this, set your settings up on your get object variable, make sure the scope and the identifier are matched, and you are done. That will do it. You only needed to add the Trinity and then the delete object node at the end. My controls helper is kind of in the way of you seeing the script, but I think you get the gist of it. Now if we try it, we can try it with every weapon, by the way. Now you'll see that there's no one on the ground, but we did upgrade to an Arcane Sentinel Beam. Now let's grab this and let's upgrade this. Perfect. Long shot AR? Yep. Yeah, so, and there you go, that you can just keep doing it for every weapon. And like I said, if you have every weapon included, then every weapon in the game will have an upgrade, except for the fuel rod spanker and like the turrets and stuff, so that doesn't really count. But yeah, that's all you have to do. And that should just about do it. I know content's been a little slow, but that's because we're getting to the point where most everything's been covered. So keep the requests coming, and if for some reason that it's something that can't be done, like this comment right here, then I'll let you know so that way no one's left guessing. But do keep the requests coming. There are no stupid questions, and I will cover anything that I can get to, which is just about anything. So just keep them coming, and I'll see you guys on the next one.